Welcome back to Seeky Strength. This is the Seekistan news every Monday for the last, something like multiple weeks now. I was going to say a number there, but I actually can't tell you what number. I am currently 98.4 kilograms after an aggressive bout of food poisoning. Darius here, he's 94 kilograms. Staff free, 94 kilograms. Today's new show, we've got a lot of weightlifting, we've got a lot of strong dudes, and then we've got a nice little bit of some UFC controversy with the ever-present in the controversy
juiciness
C. McGregor. And keep you in line with that controversy, let's start with some positive anti-doping news in the IWF. So as you might be aware, the 2022 World Weightlifting Championships are beginning tomorrow or the day after in Bogota, Colombia. Now we have a lot of the best weightlifters. This is the first World Championships where you can qualify or earn points in relation to the 2024 Olympics, which are on in Paris, which hopefully Seeker Strength will be attending. And if Seeker Strength had athletes, that'd be even better at the Olympics, but who knows. So first up, we've three positives, but probably the most significant one is Zacharias Bonat. I hope I said that right. So he tested positive for a SARM known as RAD 140. So there's a lot of different SARMs out there. We frequently do see positive tests for SARMs, not so much in the weightlifting world. Typically you see it more in CrossFit and stuff like that. You don't see a lot of Olympic athletes using SARMs. So one of the interesting things about SARMs is kind of the detection times, and you may not be aware, and I think I mentioned this in a video recently, but when we're looking at anti-doping and when we're looking at tests and methods used to find new metabolites or extend the detection time of certain metabolites for well-known drugs, most of these things, most if not all, are actually published in peer-reviewed journals. Typically they're posted in the kind of NCBI, usually, or PubMed, are kind of places where well-known journals that they will be published, till you'll see them other smaller journals. The reason for this is generally accepted that they need to be peer-reviewed. So methods won't be accepted by WADA unless they're kind of well-established. This is primarily because of legal reasons. So if you had a method that was subpar or open to kind of interpretation, if a very nifty little sports lawyer came along, you would find that they could tear it apart potentially if you could get a panel of experts to say that this method wouldn't hold up to scratch. So they most of the time will publish these methods to ensure that they are, peer reviewed and you can use them effectively. A lot of times there will be a delay on the publication of these methods to allow for a gap in knowledge to be extended between the testers and the cheaters, and therefore they won't let people kind of know about these new methods, because people spend their time looking for these. So people whose job it is to help athletes pass tests will keep an eye out for these all the time, and so they keep these under wraps for a couple of months until they catch people. Then once they catch people, the news is out and generally get published. So for example that was Pat Mendes. He was caught, one of the very few people to ever be caught for human growth hormone in competition. So he was caught for growth hormone. The original test time was approximately 12 hours, and then it was moved up until I think it was about 24 hours. One of the few other people caught for growth hormone wasn't with this new method, but it was with an English rugby club, and someone ratted on them. So fun little fact for you. So if we just look at the most recent study on the detection time of RAD 140, we have a nice little graphic here. And so the blue dots are multiple doses of RAD 140. In this study there was 30 healthy male volunteers at microdosed. Microdose is what you make of it. And the orange dots then are singular doses, and then the blue dosages are multiple dosages. Now, what's very interesting about this is you'll see obviously more than 30 dots here, but there's just one unlucky fucker out here who's clearly not genetically blessed enough to be able to take drugs in competition and get away with it. So there's a lot of different things involved in being good at weightlifting, and one of those genetics is to clear metabolites very quickly. So 504 hours here, so about 21 days, and you can see kind of get a halving, maybe an exponential halving of the detection time and how fast people are excreting in it. So we've got our full cohort kind of in here, and then quickly kind of petering out like by half nearly in that kind of double time again, where you see half of the group is gone, the density of dots is reduced, and then this unlucky bastard, maybe he was a hyper responder, maybe he got loads out of it.
But it really does just go to show, like, it's you just never know. Like, there could be other environmental factors there. Obviously the study conditions will be fairly well controlled, where you wouldn't have some people with massive amounts of body fat and then other people with moderate amounts or low amounts of body fat. Like, all these these different things that would allow you to hold on or to secrete faster would be controlled for, but it may not just be genetics in this case as well. So it really does just go to show it's a scary one. You're 20, conceivably 18 or 19 days after the vast majority of the other athletes were clean, you're still not clean. It's crazy to think.
Yes, yeah. So it's just worth noting that the single dose did start after, but we still have a big change in density. So from orange
Massive
to the
change,
you do see you've this big cohort, say in the orange ones here, where everyone gets their initial dose, and then we see a big dispersion in that. Like
you definitely
I wouldn't be too like it's obviously looking at this statistics aren't intuitive,
No.
It's very clear that we don't have a singular dot where everyone excreted everything at 336 hours. Like there's a very clear inter-individual difference with the excretion of stuff. Zacharias, why we're kind of talking about him, was he was bronze in London, and he was in 81. He moved up to 89s.
Yeah. It is just crazy. I'd also like to see the differences in washout from individual to individual as they go through multiple cycles as well.
What do you mean?
So if we took Timmy from Sikistan, gave him gear, check the washout timer, check how long it's present for.
Yeah.
3 months later, give him gear again, check how long it takes to wash out. 3 months later, give him gear again. It's like we're constantly giving him gear.
Yeah.
But it will be different to see if there's a certain resilience built up and therefore the metabolites get washed out far quicker, or if there's the opposite effect where there's a familiarity built up, and it's probably the opposite effect where somebody's taking more drugs to elicit the same effect because they're building up some sort of resistance, and then the washout takes longer.
What I think is interesting about this as well is that it kind of just should highlight to you how hard it is to dope without state-sponsored help, because we have individuals who might be in countries where there is some drug testing, and then we have other countries with state-sponsored doping or a huge amount of drug testing involved, and they'll have scenarios where, for example, there was a news article where the Armenians were sending their drug testing results to a Russian lab to test whether their athletes were clean or not for their anti-doping, but to ensure that they were clean for competition, as they knew they were taking drugs. And I think this should just be one of the things where you don't know if you're this incredibly unlucky individual out here at 504 hours where you're like, oh, shit, you still have it. This is going from something like 12 days to 21 days. And when we saw with Abdi Alkanov, for example, testing positive to Renabol, we saw the detection time go from something like from 4.5 days to like 7.5 days or something like that. A very small change, And people take this very close to competition. So it's you need help with that, passing those drug tests. Now, moving on, we've got Miso Hasana, and he finally hit the 210 double on his Miso complex.
This Miso complex is definitely one of the most impressive things. As to have seen live, this is one of the most impressive things you can see.
This is his complex, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is. When we were in Qatar with him, you saw him do it in training. It's a big thing. They use it a lot. He really likes it. It makes him feel like he's pulling under the bar very, very well, which obviously makes a massive amount of sense. A bar coming down at speed like that in that kind of second heaving hang clean, there's a lot of braking force required there, and then that pull under is obviously greatly strengthened by the use of it. Really nice. It's a classic case of somebody really refining a technique and getting very, very, very good at a complex.
Yes.
Over the course of many years,
I wouldn't be mad about going this heavy with them. So obviously psychologically for him, this is a big win, and I know he's tried to 210 a few times before, but I wouldn't be... See, there's a certain point where you get so heavy that you will get some slowdown, and I think you're reinforcing the wrong thing. I think like sub-maximal weights to this would be much better, but obviously there's different reasons for here, But Miso's competing as 102, but he's only like 96 kilos.
I saw that. He actually looks very lean, like in his arms and stuff. He looks jacked.
He looks big though.
Yeah.
So I saw him a few months ago, and he was trying to gain. He was like 104 or something, or 102 maybe. But he said he felt very, very slow, and he was really conscious of that, and it was kind of getting to him a little bit. So he obviously cut down weight, but hopefully he can build back up again and fill out the class, because he will need all that weight
absolutely
to be winning and keep his speed, but also be a big lifter.
Looks very good. I know that jerk is quite light for him in terms of absolute numbers, but that's a very nice 210 jerk.
Yeah, it looks
really,
great.
really good.
Then, of course, we have Toma, or Loredina Toma's 121 kilo in excess of the world record, 4 kilos over the world record, snatch, no straps.
To be honest, this is the weightlifting story of the year.
Well, not the year.
Training story. I think, like...
Yeah, that's a bit of...
I think people are going to talk about this for a long time. Someone coming into the warm-up room before competing, hitting 4 kilos over the world record. Like, her last attempt before 121 was 118, which would have beat the world record as well.
Does how she loaded it kind of bother you, know?
No.
I don't think that's just not how... Like, as we often talk about. The loading of barbells. And I don't know about this one.
What would you have gone for? 25 at 20?
Two 25s. And collar 2.5. And I just don't know. But not the collar. Sorry, she doesn't need the collar. No, she does actually, sorry. So, obviously, an incredible lift. Technically, very good. Probably, technically, Toma is very consistent. And this is no issue. So remember on the 117 she did in the 2019 World Training Hall, she had that kind of little arm bend, but this looks perfect, you know, in terms of speed and power. Looks like she's standing a little bit wider than she normally does in the pull, so I wonder if that was a constant change. You know, it's funny again, so I suppose just talk about Miso and going that heavy in the training hall. For in terms of tapering, that doesn't make the most sense. Like, that's not the best idea. And not to rag on these elite athletes or whatever, but, you know, talking about them in terms of like good coaching principles and stuff. The short term for the competition, going this heavy, this close competition doesn't make sense in terms of like psychological resources, but also physiological resources. You know, so you don't want to be... How you can do multiple world records in 1 week, you know, and there's obviously going to be a lot used here in terms of the hype she needed for this. And then physically, you know, she tapering is, you know, reducing the weight and the volume to freshen up and allow for that recovery curve to come up above and let you return to state. But in terms of long-term progress, I assume this is something she's been working for a long time. So in terms of long-term progress, it's probably worth getting this 121 ticked off.
It's funny, like, weightlifting is a quite rare in the sporting world in terms of like how they taper and how they peak for competition. Like, in most other sports, peaking and tapering tend to be the same thing. You'll just taper off your training volume and training load, and training intensity. Sometimes in training tapers or training peaks, like, you could be talking about 10 days or 2 weeks prior to the competition, pulling back all the intensity and all the loading, and you basically just conserving energy for those last 10 days or 2 weeks or 1 week. In weightlifting, people tend to go around 80 to 85%, and then they'll probably go for their openers a few days out from competition, but certainly going this heavy is not by any means familiar to people.
No, absolutely not. But this looks like kind of lift where you're like, oh, in a couple of months you could do 125.
Yeah.
That's what this looks like. She also hit a 138 kilo clean and jerk. So clean is always very strong, but she does have some battles with the jerk. But I'm sure they'll figure it out as best as possible. Then we have, in the same weight class, we have Giulia Miserandino going to a 105. Obviously, just a little bit lower than Toma's lifts, but Giulia is a younger lifter than Toma, so she's filling out the weight class. She has quite characteristic of the kind of Italian technique in terms of the pull under. Gabriel did a quite interesting video on the Italian technique, and I can't remember, I don't know if he talked to someone about it, but he seemed to have some kind of thoughts about that technique. But I'm going to try my best to get someone to do a video with me in terms of what's the deal with the Italian system, because I'm very interested in seeing what exactly they do. So stand by for that in the coming weeks or months to see if we can get someone on that.
Yeah, I remember on the podcast with Yasmin, she talked about training over there, and just the only focus they had was that speed under the bar. And it is, like, it's the most obvious thing you can see. You can see every single one of them is incredibly fast under the bar. They do have very, very nice technique, to be fair to them.
Very, and everyone has the same traits.
Yeah.
Then we have is Lalian, the Armenian super heavyweight, but here he is doing the prettiest muscle snatches. Now, I know we've lashed in the training hall do 140 or whatever, okay, but these are so fucking clean. These are so slick.
No, they look really nice. They look like somebody warming up with like 40 kilos.
No, it's
and they're just moving around the barbell. They look so good.
Yeah, the progression for that is so funny. It's like, at what point in your training career does like 120 light? 120 is a light muscle snatch for a warm up in the training hall. You know, at what point is it? When does that just happen? You know.
Do you know what a snatch max is?
We've seen him do like 210 or 211, I think, in competition.
Okay.
So I presume 215 in training or so.
Yeah.
He's a younger lifter, very early 20s. So Lalian is be very interesting to see what he does at these worlds. Moving on from our strength sports, we got Shane Hunt with a 365 kilo double overhand conventional deadlift.
Remember we did the first video we did on Shane a few months ago now, and we were talking about his sumo pull, and we were saying we'd love to see his conventional. This is very, very nice. It does look, interestingly enough, like at the top his grip mightn't be great.
Yeah.
You know, you just see it's not quite that explosive at the top, but it's a gorgeous deadlift.
Yeah, it's so Shane has been sumo deadlifting since he's been a teenager. You know, he's been doing that. He's been doing both of them for a very long time. At the moment, he does only sumo deadlift in competition. You can actually go listen to an episode of the podcast with Shane Hunt, so a great guest, and we got into a lot of his training. Very flexible lifter, but he uses both of these. You know, I can't tell if he's using the hook grip there or not. Also, no belt as well.
A few people were writing in the comments that there's a belt under the t-shirt, but I don't know, is there?
I don't think there is a belt.
Yeah, I don't see why he would.
Oh, he was wearing a belt. Oh, he does a sneaky like
yeah,
you.
Yeah,
hides the
I
belt
was
underneath.
tagged in that comment. Yeah.
Oh no, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, you were actually.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't even see that. So Shane has really nice feet under the hips, toes straight forward. The high hip angle, but we still got some knee extension, so we can use our quads, but not so low that our shoulders are behind the barbell. And then just a very clean repetition.
Yeah.
He looks enormous, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was just about to say his upper body just looks to be massive. Now, Shane's never been a small guy, but he looks bigger than normal.
Oh, he's looking
yacked.
So he's in the 120 kilo class, but Jesus, he can't be. Is he? How, like, what the fuck?
He's every bit of it.
Yeah, and he's training frequency was only 3 to 4 days a week, I think.
Yeah.
He typically only does like the squat and deadlift, I think, once a week, and then a bit higher frequency the benches you'll typically see. But geez, he looks like a gorilla here.
Yeah. I would like to know if it is hook grip. I think it is hook grip. Looking at that right hand, it looks like his index and middle finger are
it does
slightly
actually
distended, you know.
Yeah, it does actually. If you look at the thumb, it looks like it's disappearing.
Yeah.
Not that changes.
But yeah,
anything.
it's an incredible deadlift on a stiff bar as well, which actually does make a massive difference at these weights.
Yeah, especially.
You know,
yeah.
I think there's a lot of people deadlifting like 140 or 160 or something, and they're like, oh, talk about a stiff bar versus. It really makes a difference at 365 kilos.
I actually can't get over how big he looks.
Yeah, he looks massive.
Now, speaking of massive people, we've got a gentleman called Nicolas Dupraz. I'm pretty sure he's in South Africa. And so we have him doing a 160 kilo strict press double. But when you call this a strict press, this isn't this kind of like Larry Wheels push press, you know?
No.
This is mental, so good.
The big thing that stands out for me on this, right? So a lot of time when you see the big lifters unracking a strict press, and they'll have it like floating at their chin, and then as they go, it'll kind of drop down and press up. Or when they go from the first rep to the second rep, you'll see it come down, and then it kind of sinks a bit deeper on the second rep. His one comes to the exact same point both times.
Yes.
And it's a full dead stop. It's an incredible strict press. The skull crushers are crazy too.
No, 120 kilos.
Yeah.
For 4 on the skull. LT he failed it and brought it into a bench.
And then just whoop.
Yeah, so 160 for a double. So he is. I'm gonna surely 175 there. Does that look at a max 175?
I have no idea.
He's a big gentleman as well.
Yeah. I am gonna say as well, those shorts have to be talked about, Griff.
No, he's pulling them off.
No, he's pulling them off.
I'd wear
massively.
those shorts. I wear short shorts like that all the time. Not in the winter, obviously, because it's winter for 8 months of the year.
It's the vertical stripes for me.
Yeah, what's wrong with the vertical stripes?
They really accentuate certain aspects.
Maybe that's why you can skull crush 120
Maybe
by 4.
it is. Yeah.
That's pushing the assistance work to that limit. What's your problem with the shorts?
The thickness of the forearm and upper arm. It's incredible.
It's warm in South Africa.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to stay frosty. Like, yeah, there's air conditioning in the gym, but you just want to maximize, you know, global warming and stuff.
Yeah.
You just want to keep
energy efficiency.
You just want to keep it safe. Keep it efficient. Now, speaking of horses, and people are very big, it's all deadlift this week. So you've got Luke Richardson doing 320 kilos for a set of 5.
This first rep on that set of 5 is insane.
Yeah. His deadlift technique is superb.
Yeah.
So again, toe straight forward. You'll typically see the strongman standing a little bit wider than you'd normally prefer people to stand, but this is because of the girth,
the massiveness
of the lower body, the abdominal region, the lower back, the hips, and you want to sit them in a little bit closer to the barbell. Typically people can stand a little bit closer around hip width with the sub 100 kilo body weight, but when you get into these kind of 150 pluses for conventional deadlift like this, and being large as a gentleman, you do have to be a little bit wider with that stance, and these are...
I really like it. No messing around. There's no fluff with like a big long setup or anything like that.
No.
Just straight in. His setup is pretty much a static start, which for these kind of weights is pretty crazy, So
you can see him, that kind of hamstrings are well above parallel, but we still have some flexion in the knee, so he's using his legs. Toes straight forward, like I was talking about. Knees aren't coming back prematurely. And I'd have to call this a casual set of 5 at 320.
Yeah.
There is just no other way you could be...
this kind of pace and the tempo of the lift here looks like...
Yeah.
He's trained on Monday. This is a Tuesday evening session and he's kind of just doing some lifts.
Yeah.
He's just kind of moving some weight around.
He's... I know, Luke, I think he had some issues with injuries the last kind of period of time. So maybe he's kind of doing this as like a base of training.
Okay.
So you've got we had him doing 275 for 7s, and we called him, we're talking about how much of a lunatic he is for doing that. But last week he did 290 for a set of 6 on the safety bar squat. And again, nice toes forward position, powerful reps.
Yeah.
Now, that ends our strength section of the podcast, the news. Here we are with the combat sports section. And we've got just something a little bit on Conor McGregor. So you may not be aware of the recent controversy with Conor McGregor, as he's new to controversy.
Some would say he fosters controversy.
You might say it's part of the reason he was the highest paid athlete in the world last year, even though he lost 2 fights. But Conor McGregor has been accused of doping. Yeah, in the UFC. Imagine that. So Conor essentially wasn't tested by the UFC at all in 2022, and a lot of people are like, wait, why is the UFC not testing Conor McGregor? He's clearly fucking huge, and if we go look at his Instagram, we'll see that Conor is...
No, he's looking pretty juicy.
We will in fact see that Conor McGregor does look quite juicy, but Conor removed himself from the doping pool, and he was able to do this legally under the rules. He was able to just remove himself from the testing pool for 6 months and aggressively rehab his leg.
Yes.
And additionally gain some upper body mass due to, I'm assuming, the lack of cardio.
I was about to say lack of just intense training.
Yes.
He's just living the good life. He gains 40 pounds of muscle.
This one was real nice.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
he just...
a lot of them are a lot of them are angles, and he's wearing a tight shirt and he look especially jacked. He's just wearing a pair of short shorts here and he looks well rehabbed.
The thing is, all of his comments on his Instagram are talking about drug testing him,
Yeah.
The big thing is so he'll have to get positive. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
He'll have to get drug tested for at least 6 months before he can return to a fight, according to the UFC. You saw the rules, and I think
realistically, it's no big deal. If you're the highest paid athlete in the world, you're definitely going to be able to source good stuff and source good lab testing. And I would say for somebody with the quite extensive resources of Conor McGregor, they can probably sort that out.
Now,
it also appears as though he got his teeth whitened,
and the D-ball has gone to his face. Now, I'll say this as well, right? As a person, Conor McGregor, I don't think I'd like him very much, given his shenanigans, etc., right?
Right.
But as an Irish person, and as a fan of the kind of underdog scenario he's been in, considering his recent losses, and people are kind of counting him out a little bit, I would enjoy if he came back and smashed people.
I would love it.
Yeah, I would like to see that, just as a combat sports fan, but not as it's a shame what he represents as an Irish athlete.
Yeah.
I would say for a lot of the things he's
done. It would be great if he was doing the kind of going back home, like when the Irish rowers won silver in the Olympics, the Donovan brothers, and they were interviewed afterwards, and they were talking about living with their grandmother and eating brown bread, and I just wish that was the package that this was wrapped up in.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like we had Katie Taylor, best female boxer in the world. She represents Ireland in all facets as being the best possible.
Yes.
The stalwart of what you want Irish athletes to be, you know?
Amazing, yeah.
Connor, the best in his field, or one of the best in his field. You just wish the exterior was slightly different, Joe. The optics.
It was great when he was on the come up, you know?
Yeah.
It's just when he started kind of on the downfall of but it'd be very interesting seeing the Netflix in 10 years. Was this the period where he had a good comeback and won a load of fights, you know?
Oh yeah.
The only thing that'll always be a mismatch in his record then, of course, is Khabib has retired, you know, and he'll never get to fight him again. But I think the outcome would probably be the same for every 100
I think
fights.
he just doesn't want to fight Khabib again either.
Yeah, but I'm just
You know,
going to
like-
say I don't think it would have been any different.
No. No, I think they could have had 5 rematches.
And it would have made no difference.
No. Unless Conor McGregor suddenly turns into a grizzly bear.
He kind of has,
Yeah.
like a miniature grizzly bear.
But yeah, I hope he comes back. I hope he does well when he comes back.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this week's news show.
As always, and we're massively appreciative, a lot of people send us stories for the news show. You tag us in posts, like the Shane Hunt post. We always appreciate that kind of stuff. We appreciate your feedback. And yeah, we'll see you again next week.
Stay tuned for a interesting Christmas present you might be able to get for some people.
A very good Christmas present.
Yeah.